Okay, how's the food? Excellent. And as a bonus item, we've also ordered pizza because there were so many people at the session. So if you want to sneak out and grab a bite, you can also grab some pizza. So it's a fairly informal breakout room. But really, this breakout room will be about your questions. So as Rajan mentioned, we have all of our students up at the front. So what questions do you have for our students? Yes.
Roughly speaking, you guys have like smaller versus larger class sections. What's like average you would say, and what are the different kinds of class sections?
Yes. Oh, is the mic on?
I think so. You've heard me speak already this morning, so I'm going to let everyone else kind of have a chance to share their perspectives.
Yeah, for sure. So I've found certainly in first year, most of our classes are kind of the entire cohort. So that's around, it was around 90 people last year. But as kind of we've gone on in second year, my classes are a lot smaller. Like I have a lot that are sort of around 25. So in first year, it's generally larger, except for the few kind of elective courses we have. But then in second year, it definitely kind of gets much smaller.
Okay, and before we go over to questions, if we could just each take a moment, I know, to introduce ourselves, because, no, this is, we've had a few people on the panel earlier today, so if you weren't able to introduce yourself, if we could each take a moment to introduce ourselves, and then we'll go back to questions.
Can everybody hear me? Yeah, there we go. So I'm Maya. I'm an MPP 1. I'm currently also on the MPPSA as the events coordinator for first year. And so, yeah, excited to answer some questions.
Yeah, hi. My name's Daniel. I'm an MPP 2 student, and I'm also on the MPPSA as the events director.
You already got to hear from me this morning. My name is Anna. I'm the president, and also in my second year.
Hi, my name is Charlie. I'm also on the MPPSA as the finance director, and I'm second year.
Hi, everyone. My name is Angel. I'm in my first year as well in the MPP program, and I'm on the MPPSA as the academic functions coordinator.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle, and I'm on the MPPSA as the Graduate Students Union rep, and I'm also in my first year.
Okay, thanks for the introductions. And they are volunteering their time on a Saturday to come out. So thank you again, panelists, for coming out today. Okay, so back to questions. I do have a microphone, so just take a second.
Hi, thank you for being here, obviously. I have more of a specific question about like a specific area of policy. So I'm really interested in science and technology policy. Is there like any chance to sort of specialize in that or go deeper into fields sort of related to that? Because I obviously like the stuff online is more cursory, but I haven't seen much related to that. But I was really hoping there might be options.
Yeah, so I know in second year there's some really interesting coursework that can be taken. There's coursework on the role of science in public policy. There's a course I'm taking next semester, which is AI policy, which is really cool. And then through the SLIs, there's opportunities to do research and to do a lot of kind of collaborative work on the fields of tech, science. I'm one of the co-directors of the AI policy group. So we publish op-eds and writing pieces and host events on the topic of the intersection of AI, cutting-edge technology, and policy. So there's definitely tons of opportunity to take on that kind of work. And even if there isn't something to tailor your specific need or aspirations, the school is very supportive and kind of accommodative with different essays and papers that are quite broad for you to kind of take it down that route.
And as well, the course that Daniel was talking about, in second year, we have a faculty member who is a scientist by trade, but is also a policy specialist.
Okay, can you hear me? I have a question. in general for the MPP, does it the courses you study, is it more Canadian domestic policy oriented or policy in general, and how much of it do you think is applicable internationally?
I'll start with that question. In first year, there are the core courses. So the governance and institutions class is it's focused on Canadian government and institutions. A lot of our professors are from the federal or provincial governments as public servants, so it is very much focused on Canadian politics policy. There is sort of overlapping of, okay, let's look at these international factors in second year. So right now, I'm taking more electives. All of my electives are actually global affairs courses. So that's where I've been able to kind of explore different areas, but it is focused on Canadian politics and policy.
Yeah, well, thank you, panelists, for taking your Saturdays to be with us. It's been really helpful so far. I've heard throughout the day, SLIs, SLIs, they're a massive part of Monk, and it seems like, you're all very heavily involved with them. As even directors or, a prospective student, coming in, it's like, what would you say is the best way to approach SLIs in terms of getting involved or anything along those regards?
Yeah, I can take a stab at this. I think the best way is just to kind of, obviously there's so many SLIs and kind of something for everyone. So just to find something that you're really passionate about and kind of just, there's plenty of opportunities for you to be involved in kind of whatever way you want with something you're passionate about. And I think that has been a great enhancement to my experience at Monk.
Yeah, I think I also look at them as supplementing your studies. And so you think of yourself and, okay, what additional skills do I want to obtain outside my classroom? And then you can use that to also pick SLIs. But there's a variety, so you definitely have some good fun.
Yeah, just adding to Michelle a little bit there is that your SLIs kind of give you that opportunity if you have a niche policy area that you're interested in, that's your space to kind of explore that a little bit more. For example, I'm in one of them called PGI where I get a chance to work more in that health policy sphere with an NGO in that situation. So it kind of gives you that ability to dive deeper in areas that you're interested in.
And each September, I'll just make about SLIs. Each September we have an SLI fair. And that's an opportunity for the leads of the fairs. They'll have a table and students can walk around. They can talk to the leads, learn more about the projects. And so you really have an opportunity to see the wide range of opportunities and better understand what each of the SLIs are doing.
I was going to shout you guys out. So Kate and Katie, really, they're there to support the SLIs and provide resources to students and student leaders. And you will be informed of all of the opportunities. It is, they'll make sure you know.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for taking part in this. I'm someone who's coming in after a couple of years in the workforce, so I'm coming back into the student and academic world. So I was wondering, can a couple of you describe what's an average week for each of you and how you structure it? So would love to know that.
I can definitely answer that. So I worked Deloitte 3 years before coming in, and it was really stressful. When I started sending emails. I went to Katie's office to break down for a bit, but you definitely would be able to manage. I think you have all the dates and stuff ahead of time, and so you can pre-plan. I currently work 2 jobs with even school, so you can still work after. You would definitely be able to plan ahead, so you would be able to manage basically.
And yeah, to hop onto that conversation, I worked for a year before I started at Monk, and really it's entirely up to you in terms of your ability to kind of manage those 2 things. I didn't find the transition back to school super difficult, again, because of the support system from the staff, but also your peers, which is the most important, I think, resource you have. And in terms of working during Monk, I also am working and worked last year as well. And it's just up to you and how you gauge your capabilities to kind of manage your time and your your ability to take on extra work or not.
Hi there. Are you compensated for your contribution towards publications?
So not for SLIs. I don't think for publications there's compensation. No, it's, you know, it's.
Hi, I was just wondering if any of you guys are involved in the NGO space, and if you could speak to your experience on that.
Yeah, I can kind of start us off a little bit there. As I mentioned, there's one SLI that you can be part of called PGI, or Public Good Initiative. And like the big focus on that is that you're matched to an NGO in Toronto. And with your team, you get to work on these deliverables that they're expecting. So currently the one I'm working with is Brain Cancer Canada. So our big focus is on creating like these decks and these research spreadsheets for them. And it kind of gives you that experience to work with clients in that sphere and who they're volunteering their time and you're also volunteering your time. So it's this ability to kind of, everybody has a final goal, and it's really good experiences in that way. And I know there's a lot of other of my classmates that just are continuing to volunteer with other NGOs throughout Toronto that kind of get their connections through Monk that way as well.
To add to that as well, you can work for an NGO during the internship. I know Katie has that and helps with that as well. And the school kind of supplements as well, so you don't have to worry about like funding and stuff.
Sorry, we're just going to pass the microphone around, so I'll come to you after this one.
Hi, thank you for your time being here today. So I did want to ask about a specific SLI, if any of you knew about it, because it seems to be a newer one. The AI research group. Yeah, okay.
Yes.
So I want to ask about that one because my friends who are alums didn't talk about it much, and I think it's a newer one, yes.
Yeah, so this is the second year of the AI policy group. So last year I started off as a research analyst. So last year I was one of the people writing op-eds and policy briefs. This year I'm one of the co-directors. And we like to give students a lot of free rein in terms of the topics that they get to write about. They just kind of have to be about AI policy. And then we have a team of editors and publication leads who work with students to develop their ideas, develop their writing, and to get it to a place that's, you know, publishable, and something representative of the Monk School and something that we feel comfortable represents the abilities of Monk students. We also have a number of events throughout the school year. This year, we're hoping to have some events in terms of educating students on kind of the skills around AI to make them more employable in the space. So it's a fantastic SLI, but I'm biased. Yeah.
I can also add on to that a little. I'm in my first year, so I joined that SLI as a policy analyst. So I've been researching my topics and selecting kind of the area of research that I want to focus on. There's really a lot that you can do with AI and a lot of topics you can choose from. You can also feel free to kind of work it on based on your experiences as well. I'm helping out with research at the Vector Institute at UFT as well. So my kind of AI chosen topic is more focused on image generation, all that stuff. So don't forget to use your own resources and focus on an interest, an area of interest for you as well. But just making sure that kind of join an SLI that interests you is what I'm trying to express here.
And just a little sidebar on that too, there's also the AI working group part of it that's less like the one where you can write the op-eds as Angel would be doing, but more just if you're interested in hearing what's going on in that sphere. I'm in that where you can kind of come to these just talks and hear about new publications in the area of AI policy.
Hi, thank you for being here today. So I'm interested in pursuing macro policy, and I know a big part of that is regression analysis. So I was wondering if this is something that's been embedded into the MPP program, or if there's the use of any sort of statistical data modeling softwares.
You could probably see laughs and smiles across the thing. For most of the MPP ones and as all the MPP 2s have finished, we are in our quantitative methods course in first semester, and the statistic model that we're using is R. So we have been running regression analysis through that and learning through videos as well as just kind of hands-on assignments on the weekly basis.
And I think based on the course description for the second year AI course, you'll be doing some basic coding as well. So you might be using some linear regression or some regressor models there as well.
So I have a question for the staff. For the internship in the second summer, can you tell me about what kind of organizations are usually students working with, and are there any global options as well?
So the internships happen at the end of your first year. So you'll study, you begin your studies in September, and you'll wrap up your first year at the end of April. And students do an internship between May and August following their first year. And we had a slide up earlier that gave a little bit of a snapshot of where students are working. So about 50% of the class works with the OPS. We have other students that are working in municipal internships. Daniel's one of those students. And then students who are working with different types of government. So that would be something like the WSIB, which is where Charlie was working. And in terms of global opportunities, there are, we have a partnership with the OECD, and there are usually between 1 and 4 students from across the MGA and MPP programs that will work with the OECD each summer. And for other global opportunities, we've had students working at different Canadian embassies and consulates. We're seeing a little bit of a decrease in that simply because of where the federal budget is at right now. And we always encourage students to really get engaged in their internship search. And so if you have really specific ideas of what you're interested in, you can come and talk to us. And we might say, oh, you should talk to this second year student. They worked with this organization in Germany, and so you can do a lot of your own research as well.
Hi everybody. I'm just following for is there any project during the study, like did you guys work with international organizations or maybe the local government? Like NGOs?
In terms of NGOs, not to my knowledge, we've done any internationals, at least with PGI right now. It's within Toronto, mostly, focusing on our local communities. For local governments, I know there's options for your internship, which Daniel can speak more to that because that's what he did.
Yeah, so I had an opportunity to intern with the municipality of Port Hope, where I did some really cool projects with them. But also through Monk, there's some really cool opportunities to do study abroad programs. There's a comparative urban policy course split between Toronto and London, UK. You spend some time doing in-course work in Toronto before you go abroad and do the field work in London. And I know that there is also a Rotman course that they sometimes have open to some Monk students that does sustainable impact investing in Costa Rica. So there's some really cool opportunities to do some on-the-ground work all over the world through Monk.
Hi.
Sorry.
Oh, no worries, no worries. Hello. So I guess this is kind of a question for people who've had work experience in the policy sort of related field, whether you're doing your internship or maybe before that. I assume in the Monk School you learn a lot about equity related issues and how social issues affect people, and specifically how policy can both help and harm people, right? And at the moment, I think we're seeing a lot of governments, a lot of institutions, both locally and abroad, enact very harmful policies towards certain marginalized groups. So my question is, in the roles that you've been in the past, have you ever encountered any sort of bad policy, quote unquote, and how did you work with that in a way? I can clarify if it's unclear.
I'll start. This summer, I worked on for the Ontario Public Service. So I was a public servant. I was not in a political role, and some of the things I was working on personally, I didn't share the same. I didn't align with the decisions that were being made. But I mean, in that role, I'm there as a public servant. I'm there to, okay, they've made this policy decision. I'm going to inform them of how the policy will affect all different types of people and help them implement that policy in the best way that they can. So that is something that you'll have to learn. We talked a lot about it in class as well before the internship. Yeah, and that was a skill that I had to learn, and it impacts, okay, where do I want to go work after my degree?
There is also a course in first year that is specifically on the social context of policymaking, where you look at different equity-seeking groups and different kind of external facets and the implications of policymaking, which really kind of taught me a lot that I didn't know that I brought into my internship.
Hi. So I come from a humanities background and I do want to go into policy. Do you think it puts me at a disadvantage because the first year has a lot of stats and economics, which I didn't do in my undergrad? I did minor in criminology, but because it's a minor, I don't have to take the stats courses and all. That's my first question. And if you do come from a humanities background, how did you bridge that gap?
Can quickly start us a little bit. No, I don't think it puts you at a disadvantage. You just have to get the supports you need if the math is a little harder in that area. I have quite a few people from the MPP 1 cohort that we know that are humanitarian, oh my God, if I can say it, their background is not in a very quantitative area. I myself come from like health sciences, that's my undergrad, so I took one statistics course in my first year and no economics, and I'm doing, I would say, quite well right now in my first year, but I've done the work, found the supports, and it's all there at Monk to make sure they support you through this transition into like engaging more in quantitative methods. So I don't know, is there anybody here that is humanitarian background?
Yeah, I was gonna say there's a lot of support. Like I did international development studies. I was out of school for 3 years, like no book. I did immigration for work. But coming in, it was pretty difficult when I started, but there's a lot of support. Like your TA is there, your prof is ready to reply your email at any time. They'll provide extra material if you need it. We have like math labs. Like honestly, there's enough resources to help you succeed here. And like the panelists said before, like Monk makes you feel that the institution actually cares about you, and they do care. Like, so you would definitely be fine, like if you put your mind to it, yeah.
I just want to also add, before like the September that you start, there's also the math and stats and econ prep course that's meant to prepare you for a successful September, so I wouldn't stress too much about it.
Hi, thank you so much for being here today and organizing this event. I'm also someone looking to apply from the workforce, so I'm currently a federal public servant. And I'm wondering, as I try to prepare myself to come back to a school environment, in terms of coursework and evaluation methods, would you say it's more assignment heavy or exam heavy, if at all? I don't know if there's any exams actually. So looking for insight on that.
I'll start here. I think we can the MPP2s can compare differently to us because there was a switch up in how our statistics, like our quantitative methods and our microecon courses were run. For them, they did have midterms, if I'm correct, but whereas we're very much like bi-weekly quizzes for microeconomics and then weekly assignments for our quantitative methods class with final exams for those. Whereas our two other classes that you take in your first semester, because I can't speak to second semester, I'll let them speak to that, but they're all assignment-based and big assignments that you work on throughout the semester that start to build on each other until you get to your final deliverable that you give to your profs at the end.
Yeah, and I can follow up on that, that I've found it's kind of just like a mix, really, especially this year. I found that it's a lot more essay heavy, and that also comes down to the courses you pick. Like some electives are more test and assignment heavy, and some are more essay heavy. Like this semester, for example, I have no exams, but a lot of papers. But yeah, certainly in first year, it's more assignment and test heavy for those quantitative courses, but more assignment heavy for kind of qualitative courses.
I'm going to add one more thing. Sorry. I think the courses also do a great job at preparing you for working with a diversity of people in the workplace. So you have lots of group assignments, and they mimic often ministers' briefings, briefing notes, presentations. So you get a mix of everything.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your answers so far, guys. To especially for the MPP ones, because I think you guys will probably already be going through this or going through this soon, but how soon after you start the program do you start thinking about getting that end of the first year internship? Like, do you start looking in September, or how soon after you start?
Yeah, I think the internships conversation starts as soon as you're there in the first week of September. Not like a, oh my God, you need to apply right now, but that's something that you need to start looking towards. I think the first step is obviously they start to help us develop our resumes and our cover letters, which is something that a lot of us maybe didn't have experience with if we weren't working previously. I would say that now is the conversation when we're really getting into it with our networking events, because most applications are kind of going towards it in December and January, with interviews starting later into the new year. But I'm sure the MPP2s can also talk to what their timelines looked like when they were getting into their internships.
Yeah, I think our cohort had a very interesting experience in terms of timelines for the internship. We were dealing with 2 different hiring freezes at both the federal and the provincial level, which kind of shifted things further down in the year. However, I would say not the vast majority, but people started to apply around around this time last year, and then throughout most of next semester as well.
I had a question about, like, in terms of like kind of navigating what your interests are in the policy area. What if you're someone who doesn't exactly know like what type of field you particularly want to go into? Do you feel like the first year courses, they kind of help you with pinpointing what you're interested in, or do you feel like that's something that only comes like after you've done the internship and figured out like what you actually enjoy? And do you feel like that understanding that interest then makes it easier in terms of like the course load in like second year?
This question makes me excited, so I'm gonna start. I went into first year thinking, oh, I'm really interested in health policy. I think Monk does an amazing job at preparing you. Any of us here could be dropped in any room that is starting kind of any topic of conversation, and we would still be able to engage in that conversation. It gives you those core policy analysis skills. You know the right questions to ask. You have those core skills, and then it's okay, you can learn about the subject matter. You can always learn about that. So I'm really wanting to be a good policy analyst, and I'm like, okay, and then we'll see where life takes me after. I don't want to close any doors. So I'm a policy generalist, but I'll let someone who has a niche or an interest talk next.
I can start there. As I said, I did health sciences, so I came into Monk with a clear focus on health policy being my interest, and in my personal statement even mentioned that straight up to say that's where I was interested in going. But I can speak to also what Anna said, that coming into here, I also realized there's a lot of other areas that I'm finding a new interest in, and that's like I didn't even think I was gonna like economics. I actually really, really enjoy it after taking it this semester. So that's starting to kind of bleed into the areas that I'm looking towards for my internship. So there are definitely people that are showing up to Monk with like a clear interest. This is where I want to go. And I know a lot of people in my cohort have kind of like really no idea of what policy area they are. That's the beauty of coming to Monk. You have so many opportunities to explore different areas and different fields through either your SLIs or just general like conferences and talks. And so you can kind of grow your own interests. But as Anna said, we're kind of trained to be generalists, be able to walk into those rooms and be able to have that conversation, ask those right questions.
Just to add, in the words of our founding director, I remember that she said, Monk makes you a policy architect. And that's exactly what it makes you. And so wherever you find yourself, wherever the job market sends you, you would be that policy architect there. So worry not at all.
Just to add one more thing, even speaking, so my role is working with second year students, advising them on their full-time job search, as well as working with alumni. And even our alums will come back and say, you know, I've tried this particular field for 5 years, and now I'm looking to make a career change. And so you really come out of the program as a policy generalist, and then might focus on different areas throughout your career. So if you don't know what that is right now, that's completely normal, and you'll figure it out along the way.
like right now I'm in my undergrad at U of T Scarborough, and professors are a little less flexible. I've been working for OPS for the past 2 years, so kind of like that obviously overlaps with your classes, which are between 9 to 5 frame, and I think the professors would expect you to prioritize the class over your job, which is I think fair. But in masters, I think in one of the previous panels we talked about this. Like, let's say if I'm joining as an assistant press secretary to the minister, that would require a lot of like going to like, I don't know, conferences here and there, briefings, and that would definitely clash with, let's say, I don't know, in-person classes. Or so, are classes recorded or like, no? Okay.
I'm gonna let Katie take this question.
Just adding to that as well, is it like, because undergrad classes, there are a lot of them who take like attendance. So that like kind of like that's like 10% of your grades. That also creates a problem for people who are working 9 to 5 when they're in their undergrad. So is it like that with MPP?
So the MPP program is a full-time professional program, and the classes you are required to attend class. I believe most of your syllabi will probably say if you miss more than 2 classes, you could be at risk of not receiving the credit for that class. And the participation in classes is really important because those are when the discussions are happening. It's not a professor standing at the top of the class, at the front of the class lecturing to people. There obviously are some lectures, but a lot of it is discussion based. There would be group work happening in classes, and so you would need to have an in-person presence, and it's a really important component of the program to have that presence.
To add that, to make most of the experience that you have here, like you have to be here. Like you're meeting your friends who would be in workspaces that you want to be in. You want to create those connections and stuff. Like I started with one job and then I added a second one as a part-time. But being in all my classes makes a difference. Like those conversations that you have, like impacts like add to the value that you'll be taking away. So I think it would definitely be important to prioritize being in the classroom because it's one of the value propositions we have here. Yeah.
I have a much more general question about the monk school. I had a really hard time picking between this breakout room and the other one because they both seem so interesting. I was wondering if any of you had that same dilemma and what ultimately led you to picking MPP over MGA.
Yeah, so I did my undergrad degree in international relations at Carleton. And so for a while, I was really kind of going back and forth between the two programs. Ultimately, I decided to apply for MPP over MGA. I think for me personally, it was the career goals that I saw myself striving for in 10, 15, 20 years' time and kind of where I wanted to be. And I wanted to align myself with the supports that would help me with those ambitions.
I applied to both, and I only got into this one, if that makes things easier.
I have a question about the preparatory like stats econ course that you might take during the summer if you get in. Is it like virtual? Can you do it while doing a summer job, or do you have to be in Toronto to take it?
Yeah, I can start us off and then give it to the MPP ones from there. I was working full-time in a research position at Unity Health in Toronto, and throughout it I was still doing my stats prep like in the evenings because those are all asynchronous, like just lectures that you can watch in your own time and then have like little prep quizzes that you can do as many times as you want, and then other additional problem sets that are posted to help you prep for the exam you have to take for that. You have to take like a diagnostic only for the stats portion. The econ ones are also asynchronous. There was a bunch of lectures that were given to us throughout August. There were 2 like synchronous like lectures that were presented by one of the TAs as well, but those were also recorded and posted later for you to view. So that was, I think, the only conflicting portion for a lot of people that were working 9 to 5 to get into that time to watch those. But overall, you still had that time to get and watch all those videos in your own time.
I guess touching on that like exam that Maya just briefly mentioned, it's a diagnostic. It's not meant for any grades. If you fail it, it's not the end of the world. It just for the program to see if you need additional support, so that they can provide the additional support. That's about it. It's not something that you should like overly worry about per se, because I think the courses do prep you really well for that. So no stress.
Something that I've heard from many people that seems very great is that you do work in class that is very applicable to the public sector. So you're working on like briefings or policy papers that you would literally do in the workplace. But for the other portion of people that perhaps have aspirations in the private sector and nonprofit, do you also do things that are applicable there? And what does that look like?
I mean, not the private sector, but for the NGOs, like as I mentioned, there's the SLIs that give you that opportunity to engage there. So the one feel like I'm plugging it too much, that my directors are gonna laugh at me later, but like Public Good Initiative is that chance to work with the NGOs. So that's one where you get that kind of client relations ability to work with them. And then also, just generally things that are not super focused towards the public sector, because 100%, like yes, MPP is focused on getting you jobs there in that area, but there also are opportunities to engage with private sector. So those are like the different networking events that they hold through Monk for us to meet with them. So last night, I think the three of us, I don't know if anyone else was also there, but there was a Strategy Corp one that we went to and got to chat with consultants there. But
yeah, I was just gonna add as well, the case competitions, as someone who worked in private, like super helpful, because you're literally like sitting in front of directors and stuff, and they're questioning you, and you're like, was my presentation good enough? Like all those kind of questions, it like puts you on the spot and helps you think on the spot. So there's opportunities for practice for things like that as well. Yeah.
Thanks, guys, for the answers so far. If I could bring you guys back to where we are now, which is applying for this program, wondering if either of you would be willing to share some of the elements, either of your background or your application, that you guys think made you successful applicants.
Yeah, I would say one thing that I would recommend to include is a bit about what you would gain from coming to Monk. I think it's one thing to talk about your competencies to try to sell yourself as the perfect applicant, but it's another thing to have that self-reflective ability to recognize what areas you're hoping to improve on, specifically by going to Monk, and how that would make you a more policy-minded professional at the end of the 2 years.
I would also like to add that you're here today, so you can put in some of the things that you heard here. You know, I heard from the panel, yeah, it helps.
My question's building on the previously mentioned like stats and prep courses, and also the sentiment that's been echoed of keeping an open mind about the area of policy. This is kind of looking ahead, but if we were to receive an offer, is there any advice you would give about preparing in advance of the course?
Read the news. know what's going on. We'll talk about current events a lot in class, just like start off the class. So, you know, just keep up to date on the news. I'll turn it to the other folks up here.
I'd say utilize all the resources that's here, like literally just use the resources because they're here and you're paying for them. So yeah, utilize them.
Just echoing Anna, the news is a big one. I agree. I didn't read the news a lot before coming here, and in my first week of even orientation week and hearing everybody mention these things that were currently happening, I was like, wow, okay, I need to get on this. This is something I need to start to engage with on the daily basis to connect with my classmates in that area. Another one, LinkedIn. Your LinkedIn's great. That's kind of a way that you start to make your network. Really, it's not weird to be like, oh, hey, can we connect on LinkedIn after this? It's a really great way to start growing your network here at Monk as well as just outside of it.
There is an opportunity for first years to be paired with second years. The Student Association, Claire, who's not here today, was in charge of running it's called the Compass Mentorship Program, and it's sort of an informal pairing, and we try and make it a safe space so you can ask those questions to a second year. And I know all of the second years we were all in your shoes once. We are all more than willing to have your back as well. But for the news and podcasts, I find for my well-being, I can't have news notifications on. Makes me too sad. But I find the CBC World Report. It's a 10-minute podcast that's released daily, and it keeps me up to date on just current events.
I was curious about your guys' sort of long-term career aspirations. Maybe if you have an idea, and sort of how has being at the monk school informed your decisions about that, sort of what's changed, and sort of just maybe in a dream world, where would you want to be in, say, 15 to 20 years?
Yeah, I think I'm super interested in going back into public affairs consulting once I'm done at Monk. So kind of linking public policy with kind of private and client sector needs and ambitions. I kind of like the creative work that happens in that space, and I'm finding, or I think that the skills that I'm learning at Monk will really help me out with that field.
Yeah, echoing that for myself, like I did a lot of work in like the equity sphere before coming here with my research in the summers, and I really want to kind of continue that forward because that's a big conversation with policy. It's just how are we actually impacting the people that we're meant to be making these policies for. So that for me is more in like kind of the private or NGO sphere, being able to work on that kind of amalgamation of the policies we make and also the real people that are impacted by it.
Yeah, and sort of similar to Anna, I consider myself kind of a policy generalist. So my background, I've done some work in long-term care, economic development, all in the public service. So I think that's kind of the track that I'd like to go on, but I'm kind of exploring other things this year. But yeah, I really like that aspect of policy, is just that you can continue to learn new things throughout your career and kind of grow as a person and a policymaker.
For those of you that have completed your internship already, what kind of was like a day in the life of working in your internship? What kind of tasks and projects were you working on?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I was with the municipality of Port Hope, and so I worked on a lot of different local policy issues. I was doing something called policy renovations, so taking kind of outdated policies that hadn't been touched since the early 2000s and refreshing them to support a more economically sustainable business environment in Port Hope. So that was engaging with local stakeholders, businesses, public entities, meetings with different provincial ministries to look at how, and something you'll learn in first year as well is kind of the very broad impact of provincial policy on municipal policy. And so looking at how to support Port Hope through those transitions.
Yeah, I can go next and just kind of follow up on that. So I worked at the WSIB, so the Workplace Safety Insurance Board of Ontario, and their Privacy and Freedom of Information Office. And my work really kind of varied generally. Some of it's doing like privacy risk assessments. Some of it was working through FOI files. So it really varied day to day, but that was kind of some examples.
I have a question about what kind of courses does this program offer on digital governance in addition to the policy you mentioned earlier?
I think there is an MGA elective specifically on digital governance, if I'm not mistaken. And then in terms of the MPP sphere, I know that there is also a course I'm taking next semester, which is public policy for the 21st century. So kind of looking at the more modern aspects of policy design. And as I mentioned, there's also a course on the role of science in policy. So there's lots of different avenues. And then as I mentioned before, professors do a really good job at kind of keeping their assignments quite broad. So you can kind of take it down any direction that you would like. I've written a fair bit about kind of the digital policy kind of ecosystem for courses that weren't specific to that. And that provided me with a very self-guided research opportunity to research whatever.
Hi, this is actually a question I have from like the earlier info session, but to anyone who would know. In terms of the actual applications itself, for the writing samples, is that something where you submit prior done writings and work, or are you writing that on the spot as kind of like a quick, like just writing and filling into a prompt?
To clarify that question, are you referring to like the application to MPP, the program? So like the supplementary applications. I think when we did it last year, it was 2 video interview questions with I think a 10-minute writing block where you just type. You're given a very general prompt and then you type on the spot for I think about 10-ish minutes. That was the supplementary application, if I remember correctly. It was a while ago. But I think the admissions team, the program team can touch on that a lot more.
Just before the program team gets, I think, are you mentioning in the application that we have to submit alongside our personal statement another like writing piece, like to prove like our proficient, like writing? Yeah, okay, so I think that might be, I'm not sure if that is something that we have. I will pass it off to that one. Katie,
I
do you know?
believe that for the application, you need to write a personal statement, and that's just a statement about you and your interest in the program, what you think you'll gain from the program. So there isn't a writing sample required. So a writing sample, we would think of like maybe an essay that you've done for a different course, but that's not required for the program. There's the personal statement, and then, as Angel was talking about, the Kira talent videos. Those are on the spot, yes.
Hi, I had a question about the dual degree programs. Given that the MPP is condensed to 1 year, what does that look like in terms of the courses that you're taking and potentially sacrificing? Like, are you getting the year 1 experience, year 2, or a combination of both?
So nobody on the panel is a dual degree student, so I can help to answer that question as a staff member. It depends on the dual degree that you're doing. So each of the dual degrees have different course requirements and they're very specific. So if there's something in particular that you're interested in, I suggest that you write to Rajan and she'll be able to walk you through exactly what the qualifications are for that specific dual degree.
I just had a question about the thing about like courses like having like broad projects that like allow you to like go in like a particular area of policy that you're actually interested in. I was just like curious, when you're doing those kinds of like projects, do you get like a lot of assistance from your professors in like who can like help you like steer in like the direction that might be good for you, or if you don't necessarily know what topic you want to do, like they would be able to like kind of like help you kind of dig deeper into like what you might be interested in?
Yeah, 100%. An example, I'm taking a course right now called The Moral Foundations of Policymaking, where the assignments are quite broad, and our professor does a very fantastic job of assisting you with helping you refine your thesis and come up with a really good idea to write about. He also has provided a list of prompts to help guide ideas, but it's really up to you for those assignments to come up with your own ideas. No one at Monk will kind of give that to you. Kind of have to take it for yourself, which I really like and really empowered me to think about the policy areas that I'm interested in, because I did find it at times a bit kind of, not confusing, but I guess a bit disorienting. So the professors do a really good job of helping you kind of refine those ideas.
Yeah, and I think the professors are pretty open. One of my courses I'm writing about stable coins and cryptocurrency, which like my professor's like, wait, I've never seen that. But like he was open to it and he went to read and he's been like giving me like pretty much coaching me with along to write the paper. So I think they're pretty much open to anything. So far as you like show a genuine interest in it. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to like finally add to that, take advantage of their office hours as well as your TA's office hours. Like they're great supports when you're like confused on the direction you want to take your projects or your papers. Like just sitting down even for like 15, 20 minutes with them and just talking through those ideas, they really help you kind of like build a good foundation of where you want to go with them.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just wanted to ask a question around support. I know you all have been saying so much insightful experiences of your journey before and looking ahead. Just curious on how, like, student burnout is a thing. So how is Monk supporting you all to ensure you're aligning with your studies, your visions, and your goal, and also ensuring an impactful mental health, I don't want to say assurance, but support for that to be a practical goal? Because it sounds exciting, but it's so much that I feel like it can be impactful and can be bent out. So how does that look like?
I can help answer that. So we have, for one of my classes, we have like a mental health day actually. So there's no class for that, which is pretty great. Additionally, like the staff members are pretty great. Like I've sat in Katie's office like twice, just not because I had anything. I just went there to like rant out, like, oh my God, school is so stressful. And then also like I think the courses are spaced such that like we have one course a day, which is really great because then, and you can either choose like a morning class or an afternoon class. I'm not a morning person at all, but I can stay up till 5 a.m. And so having all my classes at 2 p.m. is pretty great because I can sleep in. So I think that like it's structured, and even with the assignments and stuff, like rarely would you have like so many things due in the same time. Like they're pretty spaced out. So like, and you would know those deadlines ahead of time. And so if you organize yourself, you would be able to like get through without feeling like, oh, I'm always burnt out. So yeah.
Can I just add that the student association often really helps with burnout and doing fun activities for students to get together, and maybe Anna, you can say what some of those are.
Yeah, I think as I mentioned before, the Compass mentorship, some students use as a great resource. Like you can use it for sort of career advice, but also those second years have been in your shoes and understand and can help guide you to, like if you need more support, U of T does have, like I'm not super familiar with the process, but I know the programs team has those connections to, okay, here are the resources U of T offers. There's also the Graduate Students Union. They have a lot of events. They can help you get in touch with communities at U of T of graduate students who are facing similar things. But I mean, we try and do I know the programs team does sometimes wellness days with little snacks. The different SLIs as well will host sort of decompression circles. The two people aren't here. Oh God, what was it called?
Roundtable.
There was a feedback roundtable, and I'm glad that a lot of students felt comfortable using that as a space to sort of tell us critiques, but also just vent. And sometimes students just need a space to share how they're feeling. So we try and provide that.
Hello again. So I had a question about the SLIs. I forgot what they're exactly called. Yeah, SLIs. I was a little bit confused as to what they do. Like, for example, like I understand what the people in the review are doing because that was talked about a bit. But for example, like the Equity, Diversity, and Public Policy Initiative, that sounds great. I love that. But like, what would someone who joins it actually do in their role?
Are any of you part of it?
Or any of the other initiatives, anything at all?
I'll talk a little bit more about equity, diversity. So the MPPSA, we have some equity advisors, and they're sort of an arm's length away from us, Alessia and Megan, and they're there to support students and give us feedback more on like the events we're wanting to host or the feedback we have. I lost my train of thought. Equity, diversity, so EDPP, I remember last year, my favorite event was by them. They had a cultural potluck event. So people cooked delicious meals, dressed up in their cultural gear, and it was a night to just talk about each other's backgrounds and play board games and hang out and just appreciate one another. And I think that we all do a good job at, everyone is so different in the program. And yes, sometimes, it can be difficult to work with different people, but at the end of the day, we're all here to support each other and appreciate that we're all really different. I don't know if that's too optimistic, but.
And I can talk a little bit more about SLIs. So they all really range because they are organized and driven by students. And so Maya's talked about the Public Good Initiative, where they're providing pro bono consulting. The Consulting Careers Initiative allows students who are interested in consulting as a career to be engaged in a wide range of events throughout the year. They have a panel where they do, what is consulting? And they'll have different folks from different consulting groups that will come and speak to students. Coming up next week, they're running a case competition in partnership with KPMG. And the Environmental Working Group, they do research on different environmental issues. And then just this week, they had a panel discussion on the impact of AI and the environment. The Ford plus Monk Conference is one of the longest running SLIs here. And it's a partnership with the Ford School in Michigan. And each year, both programs come together for a weekend, either in Toronto or in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And they have a student conference and a case competition. And so they're partnered up with different students from the other institution. And the case competition usually focuses on a US-Canada topic. So it really ranges, and the list of SLIs also changes. So like AI Policy Group, Daniel was talking about that. That's a much newer one. And so really each year, students who are finishing their first year can put together applications. They can propose new ideas, and then we also have ongoing SLIs. And those SLIs will change from year to year. So we used to have 2 journals, and this year those journals merged and has become the Public Policy and Global Affairs Review.
And just to add that the best part about the SLIs is that you do get that experience. So I see people's resumes transform from when you're sitting in these chairs to the time that they are new grads of the program. They are much different from year 1 to year 2, and then when you graduate. So you'll get titles like policy consultant, research analyst, policy advisor, while you're a student here, which really bodes well when you apply to those internships and full-time jobs.
Right. Well, speaking, ambitiously, upon, let's say, admission or, to Monk, and, you're looking for those internship opportunities. And let's say, me, I for example, infrastructure policy, really cool. So I feel like an MOI internship in the OPS would be great. How would you say is the best route of, getting that targeted ministry or would you say it's a coffee chatters or programs within Monk that allow you to connect with those target ministries?
Yeah, I'm gonna defer to Katie. I don't know if you have insights on that.
So when you're thinking about internships, what we always say at the beginning of the program, you were asking about timelines, and we really encourage students to engage in the internship process throughout the program. So we have professional development opportunities throughout the year, and some of those will involve resumes, cover letters, interviews, the internship basics. And then we also have different ways that you can engage with employers. We'll have employer panels. There was just a networking event yesterday. And along with that, we really encourage coffee chats and information interviews. And for some students coming into the program, that sounds terrifying to say, oh my goodness, I'm gonna cold call someone. But we work with you and we say, perhaps you don't want to talk to someone right in industry at this time, but why don't we connect you with a second-year student, and you can talk to that second-year student, have a coffee chat, learn about what they did, and maybe that might lead to you having a conversation with the manager that they worked with throughout in their summer internship, or perhaps with an alumni. And then in terms of specific roles, so with a lot of our employer partners, they will post internships with us every year. So the OPS is one of those employers. And there's a specific application process for the OPS. We tell you all about that once you're in the program. But through that, you're able to identify areas of the OPS that you would be interested in working in. And then you can guide your internship that way.
I have a question. Oh, sorry. For those of you who may have come directly from undergrad to this program, what would you say that the course load feels like when compared to undergrad? Maybe not even just like the course load, but like courses combined with like SLIs. Would you say it's more easier to manage, harder to manage? Like you've talked about that you get these sort of things in advance, but you kind of also get that with undergrad. So I'm just sort of curious what your experiences are with that area.
Yeah, I can start us off. I just graduated my undergrad in like April, would have been, of this year. And the transition, so there wasn't really a big transition back to school for me. I would say course load wise, didn't feel as intense as undergrad courses because it's 4 comparative to 5, but you're supplementing that with the SLIs you join, also just adapting to a new environment of it being grad school comparative to being an undergrad. So I comparably feel like it's very similar to what I was taking on in my undergrad, with just a little bit more of an edge of being concerned about this being a step towards your future and towards a professional career.
So similar to the question about the dual degrees, I was wondering if any of you were pursuing a collaborative specialization, and if you could speak to how that might benefit you to become a more policy generalist, or if that's something you should look into if you have a clear vision of what you want to do instead.
I'm in one, so.
I'll let you start.
Yeah. There we go. I'm in a collaborative specialization, so I'm doing the collaborative specialization in global health with the Dalai Lama School of Public Health. That was obviously because I had a clear vision of wanting to do health policy. The cool thing about the collaborative specializations, you do apply to them separately at the school, at the kind of host school of the specialization portion. So I had an application over the summer that I had to write another personal statement, which is why I was getting confused when someone asked about a writing sample, because the global health one does ask you to submit a writing sample in a relevant global health area. So I luckily had lots of papers from undergrad that I wrote on that and sent those that way. To be honest, the global health one isn't a huge impact on your time at Monk, because I really have to take one global health course, but the other aspect they ask you to do is to engage in conferences and talks as well that are in your specialization area. I think it's really nice because you get a chance to see people in different fields, and then they're really excited to hear about how you're willing to bring policy and governance into that as well.
So I chose to not do a collaboration or specialization, and I was considering that going into my second year, and I decided ultimately I wanted to learn about a lot of different things rather than focus in on one thing, and that supports the being a policy generalist that I was talking about earlier. So I think it offers an amazing opportunity to students who have a passion. For me, it was more important that I wanted to learn about everything.
Hi, I have a question about the Kira videos, because every one of you successfully navigated that. So just wanted to know what your approach was to that and if you have any advice on that.
Okay, so the second year MPPs did not have to do them. This was a new thing for the 2025 cohort. So I know me, Michelle, and Angel had to do it. Before I even took the one for Monk, I was actually prepping for them because medical schools used them. So that was part of my my prep before. But I honestly feel for the Kira talent for this one is to just kind of have it's really testing how can you speak on the spot when you're given a topic and a question. So a lot of good practice is to take these general interview questions that you see and practice coming up with the answers that you're going to say to those. Also, having a little interest in the policy sphere is really good, because some of the questions that popped up were what about public policy is interesting to you? Where do you see yourself going into this field? They really just want to see that you have an interest and an idea of where you're going, and just kind of are able to take a stance and an idea on something quick on the spot.
And yeah, just to add on to that a little, the Kira Talent platform does provide a lot of unlimited practice questions for you to practice, so do use that properly as well. It's pretty generic questions. It's just how, I guess, the programs team wants to see your thought process and to understand the way you think rather than what you actually answer.
Hi, thank you so much for your time and answering all of our questions. My question is just about the emphases that you can add to your degree. I know it was mentioned earlier that in the MGA you need to do an emphases, but for the MPP it's not mandatory. I'm just wondering if any of you are doing an emphases, like how does that supplement your degree and how does that impact your course load?
Katie, do you want to answer that?
I would love to answer that. Okay, so with the emphases, it doesn't impact your course load because the courses that you're taking are going towards your MPP degree. And so, for example, if you were doing the emphasis in economics, some of your elective courses you would choose as economics courses, and there's a range of courses that you can choose from, but it doesn't take away it's just how you choose your courses that allows you to do an emphasis in that area. So Anna was saying that she's not doing, you're not doing an emphasis either, right? No, okay. And so that means that Anna has the choice of the courses that she's taking in her second year, whereas if someone was doing an emphasis, they would have a little bit less choice, but their choices would be focused on economics or on urban policy. So it just gives you, you can specialize in that, but you would still be taking the core MPP courses.
Hello again, sorry. So I was kind of curious, since a lot of you are going to be working in a very, non-political servants in a political environment, I was kind of wondering, have you felt the pressure to perhaps curtail your outward political expressions because you fear it might influence whether or not you'll get a certain job or a certain internship? Sorry, that's a bit much.
I can take that one while they're formulating their thoughts. So we usually advise if you, let's say you are volunteering for the Liberal Party of Canada, depending on the job that you're applying to, you may decide to either put that on the second page at the end or not at all. And that's where Katie and I come in very handy. We can advise based on the job that you're applying to whether that should be featured or not.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I would add that in classes, though, I think Monk does a really good job of supporting kind of that environment where you can have those open discussions. So all in all, I think it is supportive of kind of differing opinions and to kind of have those really open and direct conversations about policy.
I just had a question regarding like the calculation of the GPA in the application process. So when we submit the applications, you guys are looking at like the cumulative GPA at that point, right? Like, and then you're looking at the final year GPA later on, like once the, after it's done. Could you just explain that a bit more?
Okay, so as I understand with the GPA, they would be looking at your, I think Rajan said your fall semester along with your third year courses. And so I think it was in your final year, and then an overall B+.
However, you are, when you get into the program, you are required to submit your official transcripts upon receiving an offer letter from the school. So it's not time to just give up on school entirely in the winter semester of your fourth year, but you do have to submit those grades afterwards to ensure that we know that you've passed that program and you've graduated.
Just another question on top of that, if you guys want the fall semester grades, then do you want the applications to only be submitted after January begins?
So you can begin your application as of this week, and then when your fall semester grades come in, you can upload that into the grad app. And so you could just download your unofficial transcript, and then you would add that to the application that you've already started. So you can begin anytime as of Monday, and then once you have those grades, you would upload them, and then similarly, if you have an offer, it would be a conditional offer, and the conditional offer would become a full offer once you've submitted your final transcripts and convocation.
Okay, yeah. Thank you guys so much for the answers so far. In terms of the class format, I'm just curious because I remember you guys saying earlier that to begin with, you have a lot of these big 90-person classes, and you also have your electives. I'm just wondering, because you guys also have emphasized the discussion aspect a lot, and I very much want to go into a program that emphasizes that kind of thing. How much of the lectures is like you being talked to by the prof versus like engaging in discussion and having the prof be able to respond to your questions and talk with your classmates in a moderated format?
There are classes where you are there to sit and learn, especially for me in economics. You know, I'm sitting there and learning from the professor. So there's not many discussions there. But of course, that doesn't mean there's not opportunities for questions. However, once those core skills are like the first year, first term courses, I find once those are over with, there are smaller classes where they're more seminar based, and you have to do the readings to be able to engage in the conversation. So it is sort of a responsibility on the student to, there's some accountability there, which makes me want to do my readings.
Yeah, just a quick thing for your first semester of it all, like as Anna said, with econ and your stats, like those are very like someone's lecturing at you, you're listening, you have space for questions. The one course in first semester at least is our governance and institution one. That is where there's moments where it is run as like a plenary, so everybody, for our year we have 100 in MPP 1 that are there together to do that, but then we also have our small seminar sections, which those are about, I think 20 of us, yeah, because Michelle and I are in the same one. And that's the chance where you do have a chance, you are engaging, you are chatting, everybody, you're working with your classmates, and then we come back together as 20 people to talk. And it's clear when you haven't done your readings, because that's the chance to really talk about what you have been learning.
Well, just kind of a follow-up question in terms of the GPA scheme. I was wondering, just to give a personal example to be brief, because I did my undergraduate here at U of T, and so in my final year, I did have, was just asking about this, the final 300 plus series course are based on the last 10 half credits, or 5 full credits, because I did have for my final year, 1 200 for like the breath stuff to get that over with, and 1 in my only credit, no credit, because that prof was something. And so just wondering, does that carry over to the previous year's 300 courses? Yeah, okay, yeah, that's fine. Just clarifying.
Are there any questions online?
Yeah, we forgot to set the right
Are there? Just one. Okay. Thank you, Anna. That was extremely helpful. Okay, so it's a question about being an applicant with a law and society major, and how does that qualify you for the MPP program? So that's a great question. We talked about it a little bit this morning, but you can come into this program with any undergraduate degree. So you've heard of health sciences, you could do an English degree, you could have, we have a student we've had several students who are engineers. And, there you go.
have an engineer in the room.
And so there isn't a requirement for a specific degree coming into the program. And all of the courses that you're taking you're taking a first year Master of Public Policy course. So the courses are created for students who are starting as an MPP student in first year. So there isn't a requirement to have a policy background or anything like that. The courses they're intro courses in first year at a master's level. So you can come in with any degree.
Hello again. Sorry, dropping the mic. I have a question that I had initially written up for faculty if they were present, but I'm wondering if you had any insight on this. So with Monk being as active as it is, and with many scholars who are constantly publishing and appearing in public, maybe commenting on news and such, are you aware of any evidence or examples of a Monk scholar or a Monk idea that might have made it into an actual policy?
I don't have a specific example, but I feel like a lot of the time they give you their full attention, but Monk is their sort of side gig almost. And they're keeping active, they're busy. The profs are some of the most hardworking people I know as well. Yeah.
I mean, just to add to Anna, it's like some of our profs, like before coming to be professors here, or while still being professors here, they worked as public servants and across the street to Queen's Park, or they were in consulting, or they were doing various other jobs while also staying here. So they have a lot of insight and impact that they've already made that they're so willing to share and want to talk about with us.
I have one more thing to add, actually. I just finished a 6-week intensive urban policy class with Professor Gabe Eidelman. Amazing class. And we got to go on field trips every week. So we went to, we met with Ontario Public Servants. We got to meet the mayor. We also got to work with Civic Action, a not-for-profit startup group. And the work that we did in class for them, they're actively using that to look at affordable housing for healthcare workers in the GTHA. So cool with the prof, also cool as students for our work to be used in a professional setting. So yes.
That's great. I have, oh, go ahead. I was just going to ask an unrelated question if you were answering it.
Then I'll just follow up. I'm Mariana Bradford. It's very nice to meet you all. I'm the executive director at the Monk School and work closely with this team. So mine is a staff role, not a I'm not a scholar or professor, but I think the key thing I just wanted to add on that is faculty work every day in the policy space. So they're on the phone to the Prime Minister's office, they're talking to Queen's Park, they're talking to international institutions, and they're submitting data, and they're collaborating all the time. So it's a really good question. It's funny, it sort of stopped me dead because I was thinking about I wanted to give you like a specific moment in time data point, but I think the thing is it's constant and it's ongoing. The way that people approach game theory is served by papers that Janice Stein has written. The innovation work that's going on in Ottawa right now is part of Dan Bresnitz's work when he was there as a visiting economist. But I think the really key piece here that's so interesting is the amount of work that students end up doing with these faculty that then is integrated into the policy process. And it's kind of seamless, so it's almost hard to tease it out. But I think that's what I think is often most satisfying for students and where they really see the connection between the faculty's thinking and the research, the sort of very of-the-moment research. But I'm also going to say that translating research into application and policy work is very, very challenging. And often what you'll see is the early stage thinking that's coming out of a scholar's paper and so on. It's a long way often until it gets to being implemented. And that's part of the challenge that everybody at the school is confronted with and needs to think about innovative ways of making it happen in a better way and more quickly. So it's a really great question. Thanks.
Thank you so much. That's very interesting. And my other question was just about the reference letter process. So I understand you guys will send a link to the referee we mentioned with their email address. Does that link expire? Because I've been waiting to open an application just because my professor's not quite ready. So does it expire, or is there a timeline, except the deadline, of course?
Just the deadline, no. So there wouldn't be, your reference doesn't have 5 days. They have until the application process closes. And I believe there would be a couple of reminders that are sent automatically by the system to your reference.
Awesome, thank you.
So I have a question about the rejection rates of the applications. Do you have any data on that? Like how many do you accept every year?
Every year we have a range of number of applications. I would say a ballpark would be 400 to 600 applications per program, like for the MPP and the MGA. And we usually have a class of about 100 in the first year, so yeah.
Don't let that discourage you, though.
Quick question. I know that early in the presentation, exchange opportunities were mentioned for the MPP. And so I was kind of wondering, since you're all in your roles and you're very successful, if any of you did exchange, and if you didn't, maybe why not?
The second years who are on exchange are gone right now. It's the first
Okay,
term
never
of
mind.
your second year. But if you come back in the winter, they'll be able to answer your questions. But maybe like one of the staff members can help out.
I'll talk a little bit about exchange. So each year we have about between 5 and 15 students who will go on exchange. And the students, it ranges. You can go to, like, the Center for International Experience at the university has partnerships with hundreds of institutions. And there are a few key universities that our students typically go to. So we have students at Sciences Po this year. We also have students at the Hertie School in Berlin. And I think those are the only two this year, but we've had students, we've had students in Singapore, in Malaysia, in London, and you can really choose your own adventure with the exchange. Obviously, with limitations, you need to be taking policy courses. Those need to be transferred back to your degree. But with the Center for International Experience, they do have a huge number of institutions that you can look at. And the students who go on study abroad find it to be a really valuable, exciting way to spend a term of the program.
Can I add that there are a few courses that are sort of experiential learning, so you do get to go on some field trips in some classes. We mentioned the urban policy class going to London, England. So if you don't want to commit to a full term, there are other opportunities.
So regarding the exchange program, how are those funded? And you mentioned that the credits will be transferred towards your MPP degree. So what kind of courses are there? Because MPP is very much focused on domestic policy. So how would that, match?
So that's a great question. So your first question was the funding. Okay, so the funding piece for your foreign exchange, you would pay tuition to the University of Toronto, and through the exchange agreements that the University of Toronto has with different institutions, you don't pay additional tuition. You would be responsible for your airfare, your living costs, your health insurance. And then through the Center for International Experience, they do have scholarships available where they try to provide students with some funding depending on where you're going. So for example, if you were looking at a country that had a much higher cost of living compared to Toronto, they try to give you a scholarship that allows you to meet that difference. So there is definitely an expense with doing the study abroad, but there is funding available from the CIE. And then in terms of the courses, what you'll see in the curriculum, there's one required course, which is a comparative policy course, and which is 2008. I can't remember the course code. But that is a required course. However, if you're on exchange or you're interested in global policy, you can interchange that required course with a global policy course. And so that would be one of the courses that you would take in another country, and simply the nature of being in another country makes it more comparative or have a global focus. And then your other courses would be policy-focused courses, and you would work really closely with our program coordinator, who would look at the courses that you would be taking, let's say, at Sciences Po, and Petra would say, oh yes, that has a policy focus, that would be a great fit, and then that would go towards your MPP degree here.
Several of you mentioned taking MGA electives, and I was wondering what range of MGA electives were available to MPP students.
Currently, I'm taking illicit trade in drugs. It's really interesting. I'm taking nuclear security, and then urban policy was my other elective, but that's public policy focused. I know there's other energy security courses.
I can't answer for the next year, but in first year, you really only have two MGA electives that you can pick through the MPP program. You either have your strategic decision making or the sustainability imperative. So that's more the climate policy focus. That's really for the first years, but it's when second years where you get that chance to kind of more dig into the MGA material, as Anna was mentioning.
Go check out the website. both the MPP and MGA websites, you can see all of the courses that are available, the course descriptions. Also take a look at the professors and what they study. And if you're really interested, that's a great opportunity to go and talk to them about the connections that they have, the work you can do, or SLIs too.
My question is about the funding. I wonder if you guys have any experience with the scholarships, the merit bids in first or second year, or any other scholarships? Or know anyone who has experience with that? Thanks.
Yeah, so for myself, I was lucky enough to get an entrance scholarship, so that was also a big incentive to go to Monk to just make it more personally affordable. Then I know that throughout Monk, there are also a number of academic and merit-based scholarships to help support the rest of your time. And then there's also other funding opportunities through the university or from OSAP. I think there's also a federal grant, if I'm not mistaken. So there's tons of different ways to kind of financially support yourself through Monk. And then the staff are also really supportive and helpful with helping you find different scholarships that might be open for different experiences, for different lived experiences. I know U of T has some different equity-based scholarships to help out. But yeah, the staff are really supportive with all that.
Have anyone of you on the panel been able to take on a part-time job and balance it with full-time studies?
I have two of them. I work with an NGO called Power to Girls, and we do programming for girls in different high schools and middle schools to kind of empower them. And so we provide mentors for those. And then I work with a fintech, and I do project management there. I started the fintech like a month ago when I realized, okay, I can balance with school. So I think like there's space for it. Like once you organize yourself properly and you, like I literally have a calendar with all the dates, like all the deadlines. Like I went to Katie's office, I'm like, I need to finish this resume by today. So like you can definitely manage and balance out, and then you can add if you feel like you have time. Yeah.
And it looks like we have time for a few more questions. We want to stay as close as possible to the agenda, so we'll wrap it up with the final questions here.
I have a question. You guys have talked a lot about the SLIs, and they do sound amazing. But I was just curious if there was any sort of options outside of SLIs, maybe helping like professors with their own research, or maybe groups outside of the Monk School that might have a policy or like a policy adjacent focus. All of you are in SLIs, obviously, but I was just curious if you knew of any other sorts of experiences.
There are different
labs.
There are different labs. So there's an urban policy lab where you get to work with Gabe Eidelman, who I've talked about a lot, but he's pretty cool. You get to work with him. Are either of you on the labs?
No.
Okay. I can't talk a lot about it. I'm not part of it. I also kind of, off of the last question, I work part-time for the Graduate Students Union as a... Oh, God. I do work with the Vice President Internal on kind of policy for the UTGSU, and I get paid for that. So there are lots of other opportunities at the school to get involved. You just have to go and seek those ones out.
Yeah, and I know some professors are looking for research assistants as well, like Monk faculties or like even faculties outside of Monk are looking for research assistants, so you can always look out for those emails as well.
And there are also teaching assistant roles that you can apply to and research assistant roles. So there's a lot of different ways that you can engage both within the Monk School, but then also the U of T community at large.
Yeah, just one last thing to add to in that. Like being in Toronto, there's so many opportunities to just get involved in a lot of different networks, and especially being a student, that kind of there's specific networks that are only meant for students to kind of volunteer and engage in. Like the University Hospital Network has a lot of stuff there. There's obviously, I know a lot more in the health sphere, as I've mentioned. It's because I'm continuing to still volunteer with my position at Unity Health Toronto throughout the year. So there's these specific networks made for students to engage with that both U of T posts on their website, as well as just sometimes a Google search if you know which area you're interested in. They have very specific pathways for students.
I have a question about they mentioned OSAP and federal grants. are there any similar programs for the 1 year abroad in the dual degree programs, especially the one with Spain, i.e. University? So,
So I think I'm making an assumption here, but because you're applying to a dual degree, you would be applying to IE first, or it would be coming through the application, and
Each dual degree partner is different, so you really need to go to their websites and talk to their staff about opportunities for funding that they may have available.
Okay. Wow. Amazing questions. I have no doubt, all of the applicants here today, that you'll be very successful in your application. So if Rajon was here today, she would say, apply, 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 apply. You might be looking at these students here and think, wow, they're amazing, they're so accomplished. This will be you in a short period of time. So please apply. If you have any questions, please reach out to staff. We will stick around after if you have any additional questions. But I want to thank our panelists for bringing this content to life. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time and all your energy today. So thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon, and we can't wait to meet you officially in September.